Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Mariela Osario, and I am the Career and Small Business Services Assistant at the Long Branch Public Library. Thank you so much for being patient with us while we work out the kinks of today's Zoom meeting. We did want the ability to see all of you, and I was trying to reset the settings, but I just want to make sure that everyone can see and hear us. That is the most important thing right now. The chat is open, so if you want to communicate with me, I'll be keeping tabs on the chat while Betsy presents. And again, I want to thank all of you for joining us. We are fortunate to have Betsy Kent, who will be presenting Find a Flexible, Purpose-Driven Job Without More School, Mind Drama, or a Resume. And before we begin, I do want to remind everyone that today's workshop is being recorded. And I would also like to request that you all mute your microphones. The mute button can be found on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. There will be an opportunity for a Q&A session after Betsy's presentation, at which point Betsy will answer any of your questions. Now, another thing is, if you feel more comfortable, you can type in any questions you may have or any issues that may come up in the Q&A so that we could address your questions at the end of the presentation. So I would like to introduce to you Betsy Kent. Give me 1 second, please.
Oh, goodness.
No, you're good. You're good. So there we go. Okay. Betsy Kent is a career and life coach. In her private practice, she shows clients how to find flexible, purpose-driven jobs without more school, mind drama, or a resume. In addition to her private practice, Betsy works part-time as a career coach at the Flatiron School, a tech boot camp where she manages a pipeline of 15 to 20 adults who are all changing their careers to the tech industry. Betsy has been the College and Career Success Director at Breakthrough New York, a program which supports high-potential, low-income New York City students from middle school through college graduation and to their first job. Prior to that, she was an education and career coach at Inwood House, a foster residence for pregnant and parenting teens in foster care. Betsy began her career as an attorney on Wall Street, where she developed her strong advocacy and advising skills. Betsy grew up in Queens, New York, and attended New York City public schools through high school. She is a graduate from the University of Pennsylvania with a bachelor's degree in political science and from Vanderbilt University School of Law with a Juris Doctorate. Betsy has a life coach certification from the Life Coach School and has a daughter and son in their 20s who rarely listen to any of her advice. Welcome, Betsy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and to share with us your presentation.
Oh, thank you for taking off that embarrassing picture. Okay, not my idea. Hi, everybody. So I'm Betsy Kent, career and life coach. Thank you, Mariela, for that lovely introduction. She sort of took up what I was going to say in the first few moments, so we saved time right there. So obviously today it's going to be a workshop about how to find a flexible, purpose-driven job without a resume, mind drama, or more school we will address as well. So before we even start, I wonder if you could put in the Q&A or in the chat, let's pick one place, put in the chat why you're here. Like, are you starting a new career? Are you changing careers? Are you going back to work after being home with kids or time off? Are you unemployed? Do you want to go back to work, or are you retired looking for an encore? Let's just see who's here. And while you do that, I'll just give you a little bit more information about myself. And I'm going to open the chat so I can see and just start putting it in the chat. Unemployed, changing careers, Esther. Joanne's looking for a more purposeful career from tech sales for 20 years. I hear you. I would like to go back after my children. That's Karen. I'm in transition, looking to be self-employed in a field that is allied with yours. Oh, I have a lot to say about that. We can talk offline later. change careers, remote, looking for remote part-time work. Okay, so most of you are looking to, you're all looking for something new. Nobody's looking to just get another job the same as the job they have now, unless you were the Jeff, unless you're unemployed and you're looking for the similar type work. Okay. So I'm just going to warn you, I'm going to close the chat because I find it very distracting while I'm talking, but Mariella is going to follow it. So I have a lot to say. I apologize in advance. So what I'm going to ask you all is to wait until the end for questions. Hopefully I'll answer a lot of your questions as we go, but I don't want you to wait to put in your questions till the end. Put them in the Q&A or the chat while you're thinking of them, because you'll forget by the end, because I want to address everything. I want to respect your time. I want everybody to be able to leave after an hour and have gotten all the content, but I can stay as long as anybody else wants to stay to answer all your questions. And I can also give you my email. You can ask me any questions that I don't get to address, because I do recognize it's sort of dense. I have a lot to say. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm talking too fast, which I admit I am very, that's very much like me, please type in the chat to Mariella and she will stop me. Okay. All right. So as Mariella said, I started as a lawyer. I went to law school right out of college, right to law school, spent like 10 or 15 years on Wall Street as a lawyer. Then I stayed home with my kids for over a decade. And that's when I wanted to go back to work afterwards, that's where I was just stuck. I loved law school, one of the few. I hated being a lawyer. So when I wanted to go back, I did not want to do anything like that. So I was sort of at a crossroads, like, I don't know what to do. I don't have credentials. I'm certainly not going back to school again. And I didn't know what to do. And that's where I sort of, through trial and error and many years of trying myself and then coaching other people on how to do it, came up with sort of a process to be able to get a job, even if you don't have the traditional background that those jobs expect. And especially because you don't have that traditional background, or you have a gap in your employment, you don't have anything to put on a resume. So your resume is not going to be competitive or compelling. So I figured out. So as you heard, I ended up working as a career education and legal coach for a foster resident. Then I worked as director of college and career access and success at a nonprofit. And then I came to my current job. This whole time, I've had a private practice as a career coach, a career and life coach, because no matter what you're doing, you bring your brain with you. So whatever problems you have in most areas, you have usually in every area to overcome. So I want you to know that the only time I got a job with a resume is my last job right out of law school. All the other jobs you've heard, I got without resumes. In fact, embarrassingly enough, I got a job as a career coach, helping people write resumes without a resume. So it can be done. And there's nothing special about me. I didn't have any super duper connections. I didn't have any training. I didn't have anything besides my own brain and a little curiosity about how to do things and a few people to talk to. And that's it. There was nothing special. But what I did have is a whole lot of mind drama. And what that means is I was stuck in overwhelm and confusion and anxiety and fear of putting myself out there and getting rejected, fear of being humiliated, and even worse, fear that somebody might believe me and give me a job and then I would fail and get fired, which would be even worse. So I was really stuck, and it took me many, many, many years to figure out how to manage my mind. And that's what ultimately sent me to get a life coach certification, which I just got recently. I had been coaching all this time with no certification. So that's another thing. Didn't need that either. I just got that from my own, because of my own interests. So let's move on. And I hope that you can gather a few things today about both getting the job and about managing your own mind about getting a job, because those things really, really work together. So today we're going to go, here's the agenda. I'm going to flip my very fancy chart here. Let me just make sure you could see all of it. There we go. And I'm going to use this flip chart. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to talk about purpose, then flexibility once you know your purpose, then the part you're all waiting for, how you actually do that without a resume. And then at the end, we're going to talk very quickly, because it could be a subject of, a 3-month course, about mind drama, and then we'll take your questions. Okay. So let me flip here and we'll start. Oh, and actually these things should be done in this order, because each thing informs the other. So you can't start here and then decide your purpose. You're going to waste a lot of time and be very inefficient. Okay. So one of the biggest things that when people come to me, one of the biggest obstacles they face in getting started, even looking for a job, is they say they don't know what their purpose is. They want to do something meaningful and they don't know what their purpose is. And of course, if you're looking out there at all of the jobs in the universe, of course it's impossible to choose the one where you're going to make the most impact and mean the most to you. So obviously that's going to be very overwhelming, but I'm here to tell you it's a myth that your purpose is out there. Your purpose is not external. Okay, it's not something that could be found in the outside world, like a mission or a cause you can join. It's not who receives the benefit of your actions, like your children or like an underserved community. And it's not even what job you do, like a parent or a teacher or a doctor, right? Those people, that all of those things are the audience for your purpose. Your purpose is not out there, it's in here. And what is it? Your purpose are your unique combination of energizing strengths that you use to impact the world or everything you do, whether it's the world, the community, your family, or even just yourself. That's your purpose. So of course, how do you figure that out, right? So step one is you figure out what are my strengths. And ironically, people are very bad at identifying their own strengths because generally our real natural strengths are things that come naturally to us and we don't even realize that we're using them. So it's very hard for us to identify them as strengths. We think they're just our baseline and probably everybody has them and we don't recognize that that's not the case. So I really, the first thing you need to do, step one, is to take an assessment. Now I have a Purpose Finder quiz that's free. As long as I have all of your emails, and Mariella tells me she does have all your emails and she'll give them to me after, I will send you tomorrow my free Purpose Finder quiz. It's 7 questions. I looked at a lot of studies and a lot of assessments and I sort of collated them and put them together in a very short, what I think is the most efficient and meaningful sort of assessment you could do. 7 questions, maybe 15 minutes, and you'll start to identify your strengths. So that's step one. There's other assessments online that you can also take. The one that I like is the Clifton Strengths Finder, brought to you by Gallup, the Gallup poll people. I'll give you a link to that at the very end of the workshop. It's $19, I think, for the shorter version, and there's a $49 version. But also just on the website, they have a ton of information about strengths. And I'm very aligned with what they say. It's really a lot of great stuff if you want to go down that rabbit hole, if you're interested. So number one, you have your strengths, but that's not where it ends. You have to figure out which are your energizing strengths. So some things you are really good at are very energizing and you enjoy doing them, and some of them you don't. So for me, for an example, like I took the Clifton Strengths Finder test many years ago, and two of my top 5 strengths are strategic thinking, and then the other one is arranger, which means good at systems and organization. So I love strategic thinking. I could talk about career strategy, politics, philosophy, art, literature all day, every day, and it's energizing. I'll go home and I'll read more and I'll want to come back and talk about more and I'll be curious about what you think and why it isn't what I think. I love that. That's an energizing strength for me. However, arranger, really good at it. I hate it. I can pack for a family of 4 in one suitcase for a 2-week vacation. And I could clean out a closet in 2 hours, but I hate it. And when I'm done, I need to take to my bed with ice cream and Netflix. It takes everything out of me. So certainly I'm not going to look to spend my life using that arranger strength in everything I do. I will not enjoy my life. I will not be living into my purpose. My purpose is to enjoy my life and impact the world. And this is how I do it, using my energizing strengths. So for you, that's your purpose. You to be the person who uses their energizing strengths to contribute to the world in whatever way you want. Okay, so don't be confused between your purpose and the audience to your purpose. Now, it's very important to recognize that, because once you realize you don't have to find the exact one thing that will define your purpose and your life, regardless of whether you enjoy doing it or not, that gives you a huge amount of flexibility in finding a job. So first, let's just think about why we want flexibility in a job. And usually it's because our whole lives we've thought and we've been socialized to think work not always so pleasant, not always the thing you like. It's what you do. You trade your time for money, right? And if you're lucky, you like what you do. And really, you want to keep work constrained so that you have time to do all the fun stuff in your life, which is all the other stuff, and get done all the other things in your life that have to get done so you can have fun, like go grocery shopping and, watch your kids' sports and things like that. But if you reframe it a little bit and you realizing you're using your energizing strengths which you enjoy using at your job, then all of a sudden it opens up the possibility that maybe you don't have to be as rigid in sectioning off what's work and what's home and leisure, right? Now, a lot of people tell me they don't have flexibility. They have to pick up their kids, they have to take care of their parents, they have another job 2 days a week, let's say, and that they don't have that flexibility. However, I'd like to challenge that a little bit, because if you are doing something that you love, that you feel is making an impact in the world, right? You can be a little bit more flexible about the kids you have to pick up. Somebody else could pick them up. Or parents you have to take care of. You can hire somebody. Or the other job you have, maybe you don't want to work at that other job and you'd rather work at this job. Maybe you wouldn't mind working on a weekend if you're loving what you're doing, and you can find somebody to swap every other weekend with your kids, or get somebody in your household to help. Think about when you're really sick and you can't go to work or you can't do all the things on your to-do list. All of a sudden, you get very creative in being flexible about how those things are going to get done, even if you can't do them because you're sick or your child is sick, right? So I implore you to take that same sort of creativity to, if you loved your job, maybe you would be more flexible about what hours or how long, how much vacation there is, or even how much they pay you. Obviously within the parameters of being realistic in your life, not suggesting you throw everything out, the bathwater out with the baby. But more importantly, knowing what your energizing strengths are allows you also to be very flexible in the job that you want. So on the first surface, once you know that you're going to be enjoying and living into your purpose, no matter what you're doing, for the most part, within a reasonable parameter, all of a sudden, all these jobs that maybe you wouldn't have considered, you can now consider. And more importantly, is when you look at the responsibilities of any job and you think, oh no, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, this job's not for me. Perhaps if you can use your energizing strengths to complete those tasks, maybe that is a job you could do. And I'm going to give you a real life example. Throughout all of this, I'm going to give you real life examples, real clients. This is the only one that isn't a client. This is somebody else's client, but it's such a great example. So there was a priest in a small congregation, and one of the responsibilities is for him to comfort sick people in the hospital. And so he was great at this. He had a psychology degree. He loved one-on-one interactions. He was very empathetic and sympathetic. People loved him. Anytime somebody was sick, he went to the hospital and sat by them and made them feel better and helped support the families. The congregation loved him. Then he retired. The new priest came and he was not good at that at all and didn't want to do it. So instead, what he was good at is people management and professional development. So what he did is he hired 10 people and he trained them to be sort of comfort coaches. And he figured out a system that when anybody was sick, it would go to a central place and one of these people would be dispatched immediately. And you know what? The congregation loved it, right? They loved it in a different way. It wasn't the same person all the time, but now they didn't have to wait a long time for him to have availability. And they got a different perspective from more than one person who might have come and comforted them over the course of a hospital stay or a prolonged illness. So I want you to notice, same audience, same impact, comforting the sick. Two different priests using two completely different, almost polar opposite strengths to achieve the same end. So once you realize this, all of a sudden, a lot of jobs that you wouldn't have considered might be really up for consideration, and that you might really be able to do them and enjoy them, because the second priest, he might have forced himself to do it the way the first priest did, but he would have hated his job, and it would have been only a matter of time before he left, or before he really got very inflexible about the time he was working and the time he wasn't, because he wanted to stop doing that stuff that he hated. Okay, so that's flexibility. We don't have time for options and arenas. If I have time, I'll come back to that at the end. I made these charts before I timed myself giving this presentation, and I found out it was way long. Okay, so now here's the part everybody wants to know, and it's about how do you do this without a resume? So first, I just want to say that just because you don't need a resume doesn't mean magically all these jobs just drop into your lap and you don't have to be qualified for any of them. That's not what this is about, obviously, right? This is not magic. I don't have a magic wand. I wish I did. But there are many ways to get a job without a resume. So let's just back up for a second and think about what's the purpose of a resume? What is a resume for? So a resume is basically just a piece of paper that has all of your work experience and all of your education or credentials. And that's it, right? And people give that to employers, and the employer looks at what's on your resume and looks at what they need to be done. And they may take a leap of faith that because you did these things and have this education, you'll be able to do their job, right? So there's this leap of faith, an assumption that they make. Now, obviously, they know they're making an assumption because nobody gets a job just based on their resume. They don't see your resume and then they hire you. You have to then go through an interview process. They try to ask more questions and delve a little bit deeper. So that assumption, that leap of faith gets smaller and smaller, and the assumption is a better bet, right? So really all the resume is doing is introducing you to the employer. And then he wants to know more about you so he can decide if this is a risk he's willing to take. So there are many, many ways to get introduced to a company or an employer or a prospective client if you want to start your own business. So let me just say that companies actually know that a resume is a horrible way to find employees. And I want to talk about some statistics which are really interesting to underline this point and the irony of the whole job market. Okay, so the statistics, there are many studies, and I've looked at so many of them. Between 40 and 80% of jobs, let's just go with 60, the middle, 60% of jobs are gotten through warm referrals. That means some person recommended you to the person who's looking to fill a position, right? Mostly through networking, but we're going to talk about that in a second. So 60% of jobs are filled through referrals. However, 90% of job seekers use only resumes and online applications in order to get jobs. So 90% of the people are chasing 40% of the jobs, and only 10% of the people are chasing 60% of the jobs. So I'd rather be in the 10% for 60% of jobs. Odds are way better. I haven't taken math since 11th grade or so, but I know that's a better bet. So the companies themselves are not relying on resumes to fill the jobs. And yet people who can do all these other things are just relying on resumes. There's a huge disconnect there. And that's the advantage that you can take. And even if you have a resume, this is still the better way to get a job. Okay, so there's many ways, as I said, of introducing yourself to a company without a resume. The first one is the one you've all heard of and you all know, it's networking, but it's not necessarily only the networking that you're thinking of. So certainly you should talk to your good friends and their friends and ask them if you know what you want to do, or you just talk about what your strengths are and you're looking for opportunities of, positions where you could use it. Do they have any ideas? You could brainstorm with them. You can look at where they work and see if there's jobs available and talk to them about those jobs. That's the low-hanging fruit. That's the stuff that everybody does. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's where you could start, because you never know when a good friend is willing to really advocate for you. And that makes sense, right? Because think about yourself. I mean, you do this yourself in your own life. You don't realize you already, from the employer's point of view, do this on your own. If you need a doctor, you can look at Yelp and you'll find 7 million doctors, and you'll look and basically their resumes are on Yelp, right? It's where they went to school, what their specialty is, where they're located, what insurance they take, are they accepting new patients, all of that. And I'm sure they're all fine, right? But how do you know which one to pick? You don't. You ask your trusted friend, who's your doctor? And if they say somebody who fits all your other criteria, you go to them first. And if you can't ask your good friend, you start asking a whole bunch of your other friends. And if 5 of them say the same doctor, that's the one you go to first, regardless of what it says on Yelp about them and how many accolades they have and how many articles they wrote, right? You don't care. You just care that your friends went to them and like them, and you trust your friends. So that's what you're going to do. So that's all. Employers are just people. Companies are just like, multiple people, and they all operate this way. So talking to friends and friends of friends who can really advocate for you in a strong way because they really know you, that's fantastic, right? The other way is to reach out to other people who can advocate for you, who maybe don't know you as well, but who you curate relationships with. And there's a lot of strategies and tactics in that we can talk about at another time. But a little hack is to find people who are mid or senior level in whatever area you want to work. And the reason you want to talk to them is twofold. For your benefit, they understand what the company is struggling with. They know what the company's mission is. They know why they're hiring the position that they're hiring, and they know what they need from that position, what the last person couldn't do or wished they could do, or what the last person did really well, and they're worried that they're not going to find someone else like that. They give you that information, which helps inform how you interview. And also, they have gravitas. People will listen to them within the company. So if they like you and they go to the hiring manager, they are somebody that those people will listen to, that they respect their opinion about who to talk to. And you go to the top of the pile. Okay. The other way that people don't think of just this sort of low-hanging fruit of networking is to start being involved in LinkedIn groups or even Facebook groups. And now LinkedIn, if you have a LinkedIn profile, and I suggest everybody make one, it's very simple. You can just put in basic information. There's groups that you could join, just like Facebook groups, where people talk about all kinds of things. And you could get as broad as moms going back to work or tech leaders to baristas in Starbucks in New York. And there's going to be a group for you, and you start talking to people, you start hearing what's going on in the industry, where are the openings, and these people that I'm talking to, can I DM them and talk to them alone, and maybe they can become part of my network. So that's a couple of things that people generally don't ever think of. If you have an expertise, if you're going back to work or you're doing something sort of related to what you used to be doing, you could also just write a blog and post it on LinkedIn or post it on Facebook, or speak somewhere, give a library webinar, right? On something you know about, right? That's a way for people to get to know you and to sort of think of you when the other openings come along. So an example of this, where I had a client who only did this. He only talked to people he knew. He did not have a resume that was relevant to what he wanted to do. He wanted a job in a specific company. A few positions sounded good to him. And he found everybody who worked in that company through friends of friends and just keep on trying. He ended up talking to like 10 people who worked in this company. And then he even found people who worked in companies that worked with this company and spoke to them. One night, I remember this so vividly, Wednesday at 10 o'clock at night, he gets a call from one of them and they say, John, one of the people has a job that you'd love, just quit. Send me your resume if you have one, or send me your contact information, and I'm going to give it to the HR person tomorrow, the human resources person. So of course he did. He did have a resume, but it was totally in another field and not at all relevant. He might as well not have had a resume. Wasn't helpful in this instance. Then he called all the other people that he had been talking to all this time, or many of them. And he asked them if, he said, this is what I just found out. I wonder if you could put in a good word for me. It would be really helpful. The next morning, he gets a call from the HR person and says, hi, are you John Smith? Obviously, I'm changing the name to protect people's confidentiality. Are you John Smith? Yes. He goes, I don't know who you are, but 15 people told me last night that I should talk to you. So why don't you come in and let's talk? So he went in and he interviewed and he got the job. Now, he did not have any experience at this job. It was just something he was passionate about. He knew about it in the general world because he was interested in it. But that person who had 10 people suggest him had what we call confirmation bias. I don't know if you've all heard of that, but that's when you have an idea. It's a psychological phenomenon. When you believe something to be true, or you think something is true, you only look for evidence that supports that belief, and you actively don't pay attention to evidence that contradicts it. So once 10 people suggest somebody, that person was already looking to want to like him. He thought, oh, I'm going to like this person. All these people I trust like him. I'm going to like him. So this guy was able to talk about his interest and his passion and what he thought he could do, even though he had no actual credentials for this job. And he ended up with a job. And all he did was talk to people, nothing else. So that's how powerful just that one thing is. But of course, that's not the only thing we're going to do, right? That's the thing everybody does, a lot of competition in that, a lot of work in that, frankly. The second thing, and please don't roll your eyes, is to volunteer, okay? So honestly, this is how I got started after I was home with my kids for over a decade, doing nothing. And when I say I was unprepared, when I left my law practice, the firm, I had a secretary with a typewriter that I wrote physically out stuff. I missed the entire computer technology revolution. I came back, it was much closer to what it is today than typewriters. So I really didn't know what was going on. And so I volunteered. So volunteering serves many purposes. First, obviously, it helps you with networking because you meet the people who you're working with and that gives you access to the people they know. Now, these are people you wouldn't have otherwise met. So all of a sudden, you know all the people you know that you've been doing all the networking with that we've just talked about. And now you have all these new people. So that's number one, hugely enlarges your network. Second, it gives you information about the industry, about the company itself or the organization, and about the role, your role and everybody else's role within the industry. So you could start to see, does this align with my purpose, with my energizing strengths? Can I use them somewhere here? And do I like it here? And is the impact that they're making, is the audience something that I am in favor of and aligns with just who I am and what I'd like to do in my life? And it's just as important for you to find out yes as it is no. All right. The third thing it does, which is really phenomenal, remember the resume that you don't have any experience for, so you don't want to use a resume? Well, when you volunteer, you actually get the experience and you get the joy of doing what it is you want to do before you even have a job doing it, and then being able to use that experience as some relevant criteria for you to get hired. So it serves a million different purposes. Now, you don't have to volunteer all day, every day. This could be an hour a week, 2 hours a week. It depends on what time you have and what you'd like to do and what's available. So for me, I volunteered at that foster residence for pregnant and parenting teens. And honestly, when I went to fill out the application, they noticed I was left-handed and they came running up to me and said, "We have a knitting group. Do you know how to knit?" And I said, "Well, I did, but remember the tedious detail arranging organizer thing I hate? To me, knitting isn't that. It's just tedious details and I don't like doing that, but I did know how to knit." So I said, "Yes, I learned when I was a kid and I probably can remember why." I said, "We have a knitting group and we have 3 girls who are left-handed and we don't know how to teach them how to knit. Could you come and teach them how to knit? Would you be willing to volunteer and do that?" So I thought, I hate knitting, but I heard the girls sit around together in a room and knit. And for me, I wanted to have one-on-one contact and help strategically think or brainstorm with these girls about their futures, right? So I said, okay. And sure enough, a lot less knitting than talking. And they started talking and I started helping them brainstorm ways to get back to school and to graduate and to get jobs. And I talked to them, they knew I was a lawyer, so they talked to me a little bit about their legal issues. And I started just telling them what I know. And if I didn't know something, I looked it up and I was in a better position to understand what I was looking up than they. And I would just tell them. And the organization realized how popular this little knitting class group was coming. And they actually hired me to give workshops on education, career, and legal matters. And from that, I met people and got my next job and then my next job. All of those, no credentials, no resume. So volunteering is an unbelievably good way to get a job, as well as help inform all the other ways that there are to get jobs, learning about industries and businesses and meeting new people. And it sure worked for me. So now I want to go. Okay, does everybody need a breath? I know it's a lot. I have not opened the chat. Marielle, is everybody okay?
No, I'm keeping track of the chat. So
Okay, good, because I know I'm talking up fast and a lot, and the chat to me gets distracting. I keep wanting to know what people are saying, so I lose my place. I'm not a good multitasker, not on my strengths. Okay, so the third thing is called value add projects, and this is circled in red because if there is anything close to a magic bullet or secret sauce, this is it. And this is something it can stand alone, and you could do it in conjunction with networking and volunteering. So what is a value add project? A value add project is when you create something specifically for a prospective employer, specifically for them in advance, before you have an interview, before they know you, and give it to them. Now, the reason this works is, remember that employers see your resume or they're introduced to you, and then they have to figure out, can you do this job? And there's that little gap. And the more they talk to you, the smaller that gap they hope gets, until they're pretty sure you're very close and they can hire you. Well, if you do a project for them that is relevant for what they need in advance, there's no gap. You showed them that you can actually do the job. It's almost as if you interned somewhere for free and did the job for them. And then they say, okay, great, you can do the job. So it completely closes that connection. So let me give you an example. I had a client who was an artist. And I really mean, this works for everything from a CEO at Google to if you want to be a barista at Starbucks. This is something you can do anywhere, at any level, in any field. So I had a client who was an artist. And there was a small company that they had a small building, and they wanted an artist to paint some pictures for their common space in the lobby. And she got her name in there through networking, through talking to people. And she knew she was up against this one other artist who was pretty well known. He had a master's of fine arts from, the Sorbonne or some other amazing school. He had a whole bunch of credentials. His stuff was shown in galleries. His paintings sold for a lot of money. Famous people had his paintings. Really, if there couldn't have been a better resume as far as resumes go. My client didn't graduate from college. She had no credentials. She had not done anything in art where she can show no certificates, no credentials, no famous people buying her art. But she was a really good artist, and she knew it. So we brainstormed, and she went down to the building anonymously and looked around. She looked at the color, she looked at the furniture, she looked at the size and the lighting. She came back during different times and different days. She looked at the people who worked there to see if they were like super conservative or bohemian hippie, and sort of got the vibe. And she went home and she painted a picture for the lobby. Not only that, but she also sketched some additional pictures that could go in other places in the lobby, or maybe if they had the same vibe in the rest of the building, she didn't see the rest of the building, it could go there. Then she also sketched some things which were like the painting she actually painted, but with a few variations. So they could see that this wasn't the only thing she could do. She could do other things. And she showed up at her interview with the sketches and the painting. And don't you know, she got hired. I think she left at 2:00, and at 5:00 they called her and hired her. Because once they saw that she could do exactly what they wanted to do, they loved her painting. Once they saw she could do exactly what they wanted, they couldn't care less how she came about to know how to paint that way. They couldn't care if she went to school for 2 years or 30 years. If you can do this and this is what we want, we're good. Right? If a doctor can cure you, who cares where he went to school? You just want the cure. So the other artist who probably could have done a good job, they didn't consider. They just hired her. So it's so valuable. Now, these kinds of things, there's a million things you could do like this. For example, if I want to be your career coach, I'm doing this workshop for free in advance. I'm giving you what it's like to work with me, the kinds of things I know, the kinds of things I could deliver to you in advance. So if somebody was in the market for a career coach and you had to look online, you'd see 70 million career coaches. Probably a bunch of them have maybe more experience and more credentials than I do. But if you heard me and you liked what I said, my guess is you would talk to me first. Maybe you wouldn't choose me, but you would talk to me first. So this is another perfect example of a value add project. So now you could do these. Now, when I was, actually, this wasn't when I was volunteering. When I had another job, when I was the director of college access, I saw that kids were getting into college, but they weren't graduating from college. 100% of the kids that we service were getting into great colleges, but only 50% were graduating. So I talked to a lot of other people, had my job in the industry, and I realized we need a program to help kids get through college. And I proposed a whole program and said, you should hire somebody to do this. This is really needed. And what did they do? They turned around and hired me to do that. Wasn't my job to do that proposal. They didn't pay me to do the proposal, but I did the proposal and they hired me for that job. And I got to know that because it was a combination of what I would have gotten had I volunteered and networked. I would have been there and I saw there's a need here that isn't being met. So I created a proposal to fill that need. And I talked to everybody else in the industry to find out if this was just something that it was in my head, or was this really an industry problem that other people were trying to solve? And can I maybe be the one to give them a proposal to solve that? And it turned out it was, and I was, and then they gave me that job. Now, spoiler, they added that to my existing job. It wasn't a new job, but had I only been volunteering there, my guess is they would have hired me for that. Okay. So the big question everybody has is, how do I know what to do? How do I know what to do? How do I know what's good for a company or what's in the role? So here are my research tips. So obviously, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead there. You have to research. You have to do your research. And there's a million different ways to do research. And this is actually the fourth way of getting a job. And research alone can get you a job. And I'm going to give you an example of that. But also research helps decide what to do for value add jobs, which then helps you figure out where you want to volunteer even, and helps you when you're networking, because now you have something to say to somebody because you know a little bit about different companies and jobs and their needs. So when you do network, instead of just saying, what's a typical day like? What's your favorite color? You have something to ask about. You have some deep knowledge of the industry or the company to talk to them about. Companies love when you know a lot about them or an industry, because companies generally spend about 60% of your first year's salary in hiring you, in the time and resources to hire you. So what they really are interested in, besides your skills, is your retention level. Are you somebody who's going to come and stay, or are you going to leave after a year and we're going to have to spend another 60% to find somebody else? So the more you know about a company and the more you can show them you like them and you're interested in them for deep-seated reasons, the more they are going to have that confirmation bias. They're going to like you because you like them. It's also sort of a psychological phenomenon. So the way you find out about companies, most people, as you know, look at the website and that's all they know. That's what everybody does. Everybody just knows that. Most people don't even click on all the links and read all that stuff. So even if you just do that, you're going to be 50% ahead of most other people who are applying for jobs. But there's a lot of much more deep things you could learn about a company easily. First of all, you want to read articles where they are mentioned and that are written about them in the industry. And you do not have to read all the articles in the world to find them. What you do is you set up a Google alert. Google how you do that. It's very simple. I can do it. You can do it. I don't want to waste time. And what that does is you list the names of the companies or the people who work there or leaders in the industry, whatever you want. And Google will send you an email anytime they are mentioned in an article. And they will give you the link to the article. So that way you can quickly look and see if it's something you want to read. That's very impactful. Second, there are websites that actually collate all articles written about a company. There's one that is only for public companies, and then there's one that are private, for private startups, and they collate information, and sometimes they even have a list of financial analysts who write articles analyzing the impact of the news articles that are written about them. So if you know that Uber's losing money because Lyft is becoming more prominent, The financial analyst will say, and this is important because, or this is because the customer satisfaction rate of one over the other, or the time it takes to get there from when you order it is less in one than the other. And all of a sudden now you can ask, if you're interviewing with Lyft, how is Lyft going to address the competition from Uber in the arrival times, right? Or how much water is in the back for everybody to drink, or whatever it is. All of a sudden you have a lot more to say. And if you know that that's why they're struggling, arrival time, or maybe there's not enough amenities in the back, you can make a proposal about what amenities should be in the back that would make somebody choose Uber over Lyft. And all you would have to do is ask your friends, right? It's very easy to compile this information on your own. But anyway, so the websites, articles through Google Alerts. The other thing is to Google leaders of the company. And it's very easy, just Google the name of the company and then leadership, and it will come up with the people who have the bigger roles, more senior roles. Then you Google them and you find places where they've spoken. So this is different than articles because it's unedited, right? So when people are at TED Talks, or they're being interviewed on a podcast, or they've been on a TV interview, or sometimes they speak at company events like earnings calls, you hear turns of phrases that you wouldn't hear, and you hear little nuggets about what they're interested in and what they've struggled with that you generally don't see in the written work, because there's some PR person usually who has come and smoothed all that out. So that is also very important. It also gives you an idea of what they're like, and you could sort of mirror them. If they're very conservative, you want to be your most formal within the spectrum of who you authentically are. If they're very casual, you can be casual. Another psychological phenomenon is called mirroring. People know and trust people who seem like them. So if you're talking to somebody in a three-piece suit and you're in your pajamas, they're not going to like you. If you're also wearing a suit, no matter what you're like, same person, the chances are they're going to know and trust and like you better because you're mirroring what they are. So that works both ways. We all know about great prejudice in hiring, so that sometimes it works to our disadvantage. But if you can make it work to your advantage, that's great. I think that's as many ways as I could think to tell you about how to research a company. Any other thing that, obviously talking to people, any other thing that you can think of that gives you that sort of an inside scoop is going to be useful. And a little tip, if you're listening to podcasts or anything, you can listen at 1.5 or 2 times the speed. And I promise you, you still hear everything, and you can slow it down if there's something you want to take a note of or hear again, but it makes it go much faster. So if there's an hour-long podcast with somebody you want to hear, you don't have to listen for an hour. You could get through with that in a half hour. It's just a little hack that I have figured out. So obviously the research, as I said, informs all this other stuff, but I want to give you an example where just research and nothing else got somebody a job. I had another client, his name is Alex, and he graduated from college and got a job in marketing and didn't really like it. He really wanted to work for this other company that he was just very interested in. And he did, and he loved the company. Even when he was in college, they weren't hiring any new grads. He read about it, he kept up with it. He learned about it. He knew who worked there. He just knew a whole bunch about it, and he kept watching them. And finally, there was a job. It was small, so there wasn't a lot of turnover. There was a job available. It was for a marketing position with 10 years experience. Now, he had 10 months. So against my advice, I have to admit, he applied for that job. And what he did, and he did have a resume with 10 months of experience, wasn't helpful. But he wrote a really compelling cover letter about all the reasons he loved this company and about all the things he knew about them, and asked them all kinds of questions about how were they going to compete with this, and had they thought of doing this, and just so many questions and so much interest that 2 weeks later they called him and they said, Alex, buddy, good for you that you got nerve, but there's no way that you can do a job that's somebody who we want 10 years of experience when you have less than a year. But we love how interested you are in the company, and we have an entry-level job in business development. Do you want to come and talk to us about that? And he figured business development, finding partners and people to invest in the company, and marketing, engaging the end user, similar skills. Those were his energizing skills. That was what he liked and what he was good at. And he was flexible. And he went and he talked to them and he got the job and he ended up working there for 5 years and is now head of business development at another company. And that actually turned out to be a career that he loved. He would never have considered had it not been this company he wanted to work at. And they sort of suggested this other thing. And he was flexible enough to say, fine, but never talked to a person there, no value add project, no resume that helped him. Just knowing a lot about the company got him that job. So this is really powerful. So each of these things alone are powerful. And when you could combine them, that's the secret for success. Now, I'm not going to lie, it takes time. And also sometimes it doesn't work. But this works way better than just a resume, no matter how good your resume is. And if you happen to have a great resume and you want to use a resume, of course, do that as well. But don't only do that in conjunction with these things. That only gets you a tiny little bit of the way. The home run is this stuff. Okay, and again, this is going to help you. So no school, I talked about no school, that I have no school, no credentials, no anything other than I figured it out as I went along. So by no school, I mean, you don't have to spend time and money in a formal, for a formal degree or certificate or anything. But if you want to do something and you don't know how to do it, the best way to do it and to learn how to do it is to try to volunteer where they show you. Try a couple of value add projects and you'll figure out, oh, I can do this, but this part I'm not really good at. Let me Google how to do it. Google is the best free school in the world. YouTube, Google, and then there's thousands like Coursera and Udemy. There's a million free courses you could take online, and you don't even have to take the whole course. You can just go to the part that answers the need that you have to figure out how you can finish what you want to do. So value add projects is a great way of sort of doing your own personal internship and figuring out how to do. And so you don't waste a lot of time learning stuff that you're not going to need. You figure out what you need, you figure out what you need to learn, and then you just learn that by yourself and keep iterating. And if you need help, you find a mentor, you find somebody to help, you find online courses. You'll be really good at research if you can figure out how to do things. And as I said in the beginning, I coach a lot of people who are moving into the tech world. So a lot of times that world is always changing. So even if they know stuff, in 6 months, they don't know it again. So researching and learning technical stuff, which is in my mind, some of the hardest stuff to learn on your own, they have all been able to learn just by researching stuff online and being able to learn it on their own or in a group of friends who all want to learn the same stuff. So you absolutely don't need more school. And as I said, in my case with the artist, if you can show that you can do a job, nobody cares how you came to learn that. They don't care how many degrees you have. It doesn't matter. Okay, so now, again, take a big breath. That was a lot. And I know that's what you all came for. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I just want to talk for a minute or 5 minutes about mind drama. So other than not knowing your purpose, mind drama is the biggest obstacle that all of my clients have to getting a job. So all of the things that I talked about up to now, those are strategies and tactics, actions that anyone can take. It's not hard. It's not brain science. You can take it. If you don't do it right at first, you'll figure it out. It's not difficult. It's just time consuming and you have to sort of be committed to it. But most people, I don't know if you could, I'm sorry, this is sort of small, I don't know if you could see it. But most people, like me, are stuck because we are so in our own ways, because we're so afraid of rejection or failure, or we just feel so overwhelmed we don't know where to start. And so that we don't do anything. That was at least my answer to being overwhelmed. I don't know about you. That doesn't cause me to start doing stuff. That causes me to want to be confused and not do anything. So I just want you to know, first of all, most of us then, on top of feeling that way, then we're mad at ourselves for feeling that way. And then we're annoyed with ourselves. We'll never get anywhere. And we add more mind drama on top of that mind drama. So I just want to tell you that when you feel afraid of rejection and failure, and you feel overwhelmed and stuck because there's too many options, well, your brain, nothing has gone wrong. Your brain is working exactly the way it was evolved to work. And I want to talk about something called the motivational triad. I don't know if you could see. Can you guys see this? Marielle, can you see it? Yes? Okay.
You're good.
Okay, good. So the motivational triad is the way our brains were evolved to work from when we were primitive men. Okay, so it used to be think of primitive man in a cave, saber-toothed tigers, their brain, its only job was to keep them alive, to survive. And so therefore, there were 3 things they were concerned about: how to seek pleasure, that's food and sex, because they wanted to be alive and then they wanted to have sex so they can continue the species and survive. They wanted to avoid pain because that meant death, no saber-toothed tigers or poison berries. And they wanted to conserve energy, do these things with the least amount of energy possible, because who knew what was going to happen, and they had to conserve their energy and their resources. And that kept them alive. It worked. And so man's brain evolved to keep doing that. The brain survive. It looks for danger. And the minute there's danger, it says, don't go there. It's dangerous. Don't leave the cave. There's saber-toothed tigers out there. Don't go. Danger, danger. Stay in the cave. We still have some berries to eat. And that's exactly what we did. And it worked perfectly. Here we are. We survived. The only difference is, fast forward to the modern world, and things that we perceive as dangerous, our brain is always scanning for danger because it thinks it has to keep us alive. The only thing is those things that feel dangerous or really uncomfortable, not really dangerous, are not going to kill us. They're just going to make us feel uncomfortable. And yes, that sucks to feel uncomfortable. It feels bad to be humiliated or embarrassed, right? All of this stuff feels bad, but we're not going to die. So you don't have to feel bad that you're uncomfortable. Just know, thank you, brain. Thank you for trying to help me survive. But I think I can do this, and I might feel bad, but I think I'll be okay. And if I don't do this and feel bad, I'm going to be stuck in the cave. If I don't take a step out of the cave and be uncomfortable, I'm going to be in the cave. And that's fine if that's where you want to stay. Your current actions are going to get you your current results. If you want different results, you have to do something different. And by nature, our brain thinks, don't do anything different. What you're doing right now has kept me alive. Don't do anything different. We don't know what's going to happen. So we don't like to do it. So we have to override that brain. We don't even realize we're thinking it. That's why I'm pointing it out to you today, because now when you recognize that and you become aware of that, all of a sudden you can say, okay, I might be embarrassed, but I think I'll be able to live through it. We've all been embarrassed. We've all been rejected. I'm sure you've all applied for jobs that you didn't get. Maybe some of you have been fired. Who knows? You're all alive because you're here. Didn't kill you and you're okay. So I just want you to know that's the biggest thing. The second thing is that we all think as soon as something's uncomfortable and hard, that something's gone wrong, even if we can get over the fact that we're not going to die. And I just want to point out that the human experience is that everything, no matter what you're doing, is half good, half bad, right? And it's when we don't accept that half of it is bad or tedious or boring or whatever you want to call it, that's when we try to resist it and push it away and try to change what we're doing so that we don't have to feel the bad. And that just adds suffering to the bad. And so if we just expect that there's going to be bad along with the good, then we could just still keep moving forward, right? And just think about weight loss, for example, something near and dear to my heart. When you're overweight, you're very uncomfortable in your body, but you get to eat everything you like. So bad and good. Then you go on a diet and you can't, and you feel a little better. So that's good, but you can't eat everything you want. That's bad. Then you get to at whatever weight you want to be, and you feel good and you look good, and that's great. But now you're all worried, what if I gain it back? Or I still can't eat all the things I want to eat, good and bad. So the basket of what's in the good and bad, what's in the baskets of good and bad changes according to your circumstances, but there's always those things. So if you're applying for a job and it's hard and uncomfortable, don't just look at the bad, realize there's good. I'm moving forward. I'm going closer to my goal. It's almost like discomfort is the currency for your dreams or your goals. You'll only get to your goal if you pay for it with that discomfort. Because if you only did what you're comfortable doing, that's pretty much probably what you're doing now. And as I said, gets you your current results. So you sort of have to keep that in mind as you go forward. And I think of failing as failing forward. So the only way you don't fit, when you failing forward means that every time you try, you learn something new. That means the next time there's fewer options that are going to fail. And then the next time there's even fewer options are going to fail because you've already found a bunch of stuff that doesn't work. So every time you iterate and change and pivot, you learn something new and you're failing forward. And each time you're closer and closer to your goal. And just think about anybody who invents anything. They fail 100 times until they invent something. And if they just never started, they would never invent anything, right? If they kept going and this doesn't work and this doesn't work and this doesn't work, finally, the thing that worked. That's what it's like. Think of a toddler walking. They fall and they get up. And ironically, for toddlers walking, the very act of getting up after they fall strengthens their core and their leg muscles, which are the very muscles they need in order to walk. So they actually can't walk unless they fall first a bunch of times. And that's much what it's like in anything you do. And this is true for like everything you do, frankly. Also, I want to remind you that if you don't try something, you're not actually avoiding discomfort. You all are here because you don't want to do what you're doing now. There's some level of discomfort in being where you are. You all want to do something else. So even though there's discomfort in trying those new things, there's discomfort in staying where you are. So if there's going to be discomfort either way, why not choose the discomfort that gets you where you want to go instead of the discomfort that keeps you stuck? And it's probably because this discomfort you already know how to handle. You already know, I'm not going to die if I feel this kind of discomfort, but there's always that little thing. I might die if I feel this kind of discomfort. That's really, I can't do that, but you can. So just keep that in mind as you go forward. And coaching is the thing that helps you do this. It's sort of like, I'm sure you all understand everything I said intellectually, but sometimes you can't see it when it's happening to you. It's like being on the, it's like trying to read the outside of a bottle when you're inside the bottle. Of course you can read, but when you're inside the bottle, you can't read what's on the outside of the bottle. That's sort of what a coach, and it doesn't have to be an official coach like me or any other coach. It could just be a friend. It could be any trusted advisor that you have, an accountability partner, somebody to just point out to you when you're tricking yourself. And my last example is just one of my favorite things of how you can trick yourself. I talk to so many people who are trying to do value-add projects. This comes up most in value-add projects, I have to say, where they are perfectionists. So they are thinking, this is a virtue. This is a great way to be. I only want to put really great stuff out there that everybody's going to love. So I'm going to keep working on it. I'm very busy, very active. I'm very proactive in my job search. And I'm going to have this great project and it's going to be perfect. Now, the problem is there's no such thing as perfect. That perfect for whom? Perfect to whom? Perfect for what? There's no real answer. So this person is never going to get to the end. So they never have to put it out there and nobody can ever judge them. For me, perfectionism is just procrastination in fancy clothes. Procrastination is we either don't like to do something, so we don't want to do it. It's uncomfortable to do a task, or we don't want to do the task because we're afraid that people will have negative feedback about how we did it. Same for perfectionists. Don't want to put it out there. But they fooled themselves into thinking procrastination, that's lazy people. I'm not lazy. I'm very active. I'm very busy. I'm really committed. But really, they are doing the exact same thing of never getting anything out there. And then finding out what's wrong with it and being able to fail forward, to iterate, to find the thing that does work the next time and the next time and the next time. Okay, so that's pretty much it. All of these things that we've talked about can be the subject of, 5 or 6 workshops, and I can answer questions, I can come back, I can do whatever it works. But this is like a really big overview of sort of the process and the order of the process that you would take to get a job when you don't have a resume. So now I'm happy to take questions for as long as you want. I know it's been an hour. I told you I had a lot to say, but
Yeah.
so if you want to contact me, this is my email address, but anybody whose email address I have, I'm going to send you a link to the Purpose Finder quiz, the free quiz. So you will have my email because obviously I'm going to email it to you. So if you want to get in touch with me. And then also the other StrengthsFinder, the StrengthsFinder assessment I talked about is if you just Google Gallup, Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment, this is what I think, or used to be the link to it. They just revamped their website. So I'm not sure this is exactly the link, but it says, I don't know if you can see, www.gallup.com/Clifton StrengthsFinder.ASPX. Don't know what that means, but that was the link a couple weeks ago, but I know they just updated their website, so I'm not 100% sure.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I'd love to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Betsy. I've been keeping tabs of all of the statements, all of the questions in the chat. But before that, I do want to remind everyone that this workshop has been recorded, and I will be more than happy to share the link with you. I have everyone's emails, everyone who's signed up, and I will be happy to share the link with you with all of the attendees. So don't fear, I will send that to all of you. And I do want to open it up to the attendees. I did keep a tab of a list of the questions and comments and things like that, but I'm going to first, I would like to turn it over to the attendees. If you have any questions for Betsy, please
How do
feel.
can we hear, we can't hear them though, so they're gonna have to put it in the chat, or if
No,
you've already put it in
we
the chat.
should, they should be able, yeah, I'm gonna.
Okay, oh, there we go.
Yeah,
If they raise their hand, you could bring them on. Okay,
yeah, I'm going to unmute everyone. I'm sorry, I didn't know that everyone was muted.
I think when
Okay.
it's a webinar, it automatically mutes everybody,
Really? Okay.
but I think you guys can unmute yourselves once you're brought
yes,
on as a
actually,
participant, which now all of you are, all of you who see your names, you can put on your video and your audio, and we should be able to see you. And you should
Yeah.
be able to do it now.
I am unmuting everyone.
Oh, so this is what we could have done in the beginning, I guess, in this
There we go.
backwards way.
Yeah,
You just have to figure it out. You didn't need Zoom school. We could have just figured it out.
there you go. Let me see, who else? Carmelin, I think you have to unmute. I'm trying to unmute everyone, but if I can't, you have to unmute yourself. Okay. Let me see, allow talk.
I'm unmuted as well.
Allow to talk. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, please feel free. Nancy, I think, Ruth, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, somebody just speak up.
Yeah, please.
And hi, and if you want to put on your video, that would be great. If you don't want to, if you didn't get all dolled up like me, then don't.
How do we put on our video? Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so somebody ask a question.
Can I ask a question?
Sure,
Yeah.
Joan.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I put it in the chat, but my young adult daughter is working for the state and she wants to move to, she's applying for other jobs in other agencies and she's using the online application system.
Mhm.
And it's my feeling that while that's sort of the way to do it, there might be things that she can do, like the types of things that you've been talking about that might raise her visibility and increase her chances. Do you have thoughts about what she might do, over and above the bureaucratic civil service
Yes.
application thing?
So some places like the government is a perfect example of like
Mhm.
National Institutes of Health, all these like places like that. You must have some sort of a resume or application that you put in through their portal, their website, their portal, and you just sort of have to be in there. That's how they track what they're doing. But
Mhm.
that's just because you have to. Then all the things we talked about today are all the things she should do. She should reach out to the people who have the position that she wants in the area that she wants and just see if they'll talk to her. And she just has to write a quick little email about, and this is what I would work on, like if she were a client, we would figure out what to say and how to say it and how to find the people that she would want to talk to and just say, what do they need over there? What's different about, the West Coast than the East Coast? What's different in that position or that department than this position? Find out what their struggles are. All the things we talked about, all the same exact things, reaching out to other people and she could even in her own area, geographic area, she can also just ask what's going on in the other area or what's going on in different roles if there's a role that she would rather have in some other area. Right?
Thank you. That confirms what I thought. And
For sure. And sometimes you do have to, sometimes if you're applying to and it's not always true, but a lot of times Google, or especially very entry-level jobs, especially in tech, they make you put a resume in through, but nobody cares. If you come through another place, they just look at your resume as a way to track you, but they don't care what it says. So it doesn't, so it's not even important.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Sure. Keelan.
How does it work if you take on a client? I've never worked with a career coach before. Is it a series of sessions? Can you speak a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. You know what? I'm also going to probably give you I didn't think of it. The link to my website might be helpful. So my website actually talks about empty nesters, which is just a little niche. I was playing around with marketing, but I have my private practice is everybody from college graduates to empty nesters to people who have retired and want to come back. So just ignore the empty nester part, but the rest of it is all relevant. So yeah, so I do it in packages of 6, 8, or 12. And we talk about, there's a free 1-hour mini session, I call it, where we just talk about what you need and what you want. And I explain whether I can help you or not, and talk about how I can help you. And then you decide on whatever package. I'm happy to make a recommendation. And then just for the future, if anybody's thinking, but I'm thinking very seriously within this spring, is to start a group, which would be less expensive, but it would be like 6 to 10 people, just sort of brainstorming together, each something maybe like this, but people who are much more aligned in what they're with the same similar goals. So I'm thinking about doing that. So that might be another alternative, but for right now, it's just one-on-one. And I have, in addition to the 1 hour, 8, 12, or whatever package you pick, there's unlimited emailing back and forth. And then I have a lot of like written worksheets and tools and strategies that I send along with it. So it's not just the one-on-one talking. There's a lot of other resources that I include.
Thank you.
I do want to remind, there are a couple of people I have not been able to unmute. You have to unmute yourselves. There's a couple of you, if you want to ask questions or make comments. The mute button is on the very bottom of your screen on the far left-hand corner. If you see the microphone, click on that and you should be able to unmute yourself. I've been trying to unmute you, but I can't. So. And on that, there were a couple of questions that I found very interesting in the chat.
Sure.
I didn't get the names, but one question was, how do you follow up when applying online that don't give you a company name? That was one question.
Oh, you're applying.
Yeah, so the way I gather is that someone did an online application, sent in their resume, they applied online. How do you follow up with the company?
Okay, I'm not sure how you would apply without knowing the company, unless you applied just through a recruiter or something, which is unusual. I don't suggest doing that. That your resume is just going into a big hole, black hole. I think that you should research, figure out what you'd like to do, research companies and apply directly to companies, either through their websites or if you see a company's name on a job board that you're looking at, and then use all of the strategies we talked about. If you have a resume that you want to submit, in addition, go right ahead, but that never is enough. Even if you have the best resume ever, that's never enough. There's so much competition based on just credentials. You have to find how to make yourself stand out, be unique. And one of the ways, it doesn't mean that you have to have something amazing about you. It means that your unique quality is somebody else who knows them, knows you, and recommends you. Right? You could be the same as every other person, but if somebody recommends you, you're unique. So I suggest not applying to jobs when you don't know that information.
All right, next question. If you create a resume after a decade or more out of the workforce, what suggestions do you have for opening where we previously put an objective? Is a purpose or summary statement the best option?
Okay, I honestly don't like summary statements in resumes. And having been somebody who's hired a lot of people from resumes, unless there's something really unusual about you, or there's a really compelling reason why you're switching to this field, they don't care. Resumes, interviews, all of this stuff is never about you. It's about what you could do for them. Okay. So they don't care what your objective is. Their objective is, you can do my job. That's all they want to know. So they don't care if you want to help the world or not. They want to know, can you help me? So your resume should be tailored to that. But there's many ways, if you want to have a resume, where it doesn't have to be the traditional, experience, education, whatever. You could put skills. You could put experience, does not mean paid experience. If you were home with your kids and you planned every PTA event and you want to be an event planner, you put experience, event planner, and you can list all of your events and explain what you did and the budgets and how many people attended and what the results were of a fundraiser. There's a lot of things you could put your energizing strengths and examples, with little examples of how you use them in your life. It doesn't have to be a chronological list of your jobs so that they see that there's a gap. There's a lot of ways to describe yourself in a way that you show what value you'll add to them without listing things in chronological order.
Okay. Next question. I'm 50 years old, can't find employer who values me, physical limitations.
Okay, I don't know what your physical limitations are, but don't apply for jobs that you physically can't do unless you come under the Disability Act where they have to accommodate you. Um, However, I bet that you can get really creative about working around whatever your disabilities are. I don't even want to presume to like help you when I don't know what they are. But you're 50 years old. I was 50 years old when I went back. I was, well, a little bit less, but I was around 50 when I went back. And I help many people now who are 50s and 60s to find a job. And what you have, it's a very, when you come from the mindset is I'm too old, they're not going to like me. That's how you come across. If you come across as what wisdom do I have that they don't have? How can I add value to them that somebody who's 30 can't? And I bet you can come up with a million reasons and package it. And I can help. And that's what I would do is I would help you talk about it in an authentic yet compelling way of why you add value. For example, when I was a career coach and I started at the place where I worked, most of them were 30 years old and they could relate to the people who were looking for jobs more. And I said, well, you know what? I have a lot more experience. I've been on the hiring side. I've been on the looking for side. I've been around more. I have more wisdom and I have more gravitas with the students. A lot of the 30-year-olds talking to 35-year-olds have a very hard time like calling them when they are not doing what they're supposed to do or not being accountable or can't see past their own mind drama. I have the gravitas of being able to point it out and they believe me because I am older. I also can see it more because I've had kids and I've worked with people who are younger than me for years. So I use my age as sort of the value add of wisdom. And it seemed to have worked in many jobs. And all the jobs I've had since I've gone back to work, I've been one of the oldest ones there by far. And I've had managers younger than me.
Okay, next question. I am a physician assistant, chose to stay home to raise the kids, empty nester, having problem finding a new non-clinical position.
Okay, so we would talk about what is it about being a physician's assistant that you loved? Is it the physical scientific part? Is it the one-on-one part? What part was it? Can you work part-time? I guess that I'm assuming you've already tried that. Maybe you could teach physician's assistants. Maybe you can coach physician's assistants about how to keep up their skills when they're home with their kids or how to balance kids and being a physician's assistant. Maybe you could start your own online course of how to be the most efficient physician's assistant when you get that job, or what are the best ways to become a physician's assistant without going back to school. Or I think physician's assistants, actually, you have to go back to school. There are some things, obviously a lawyer, an engineer, doctor, you need an actual degree. So you might want to say, these are the best resources after you've gotten your degree to learn in order to be a really effective physician's assistant. Maybe there is sort of a life coaching program that would help them be more empathetic with their clients. Maybe they want to work on the insurance side, be a patient advocate.
Okay.
You can do privately or at a hospital. There's a lot of ways. You can be very creative.
Okay, sorry. Next question. In a transition, looking to be self-employed in field related to yours, facilitating groups, career related tools and resources. Your thoughts, suggestions?
Yeah, like, so I've been working on, that's why my website is for empty nesters. I'm sorry.
That's me. That's not a question. That's really just a message.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll send her a message. Okay, thank you.
Okay, but Joan, just put yourself out there. Mariella found me on LinkedIn. I didn't find her. It was just
I'm going to try to connect with you on LinkedIn.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Retired, looking for remote part-time work.
Yeah, so my work is remote and part-time. I'm a coach. There's right now, you're in luck. The whole world is remote. But the beautiful thing about that is I think this was a trajectory that I've seen going on for the past 5 years anyway, but COVID sort of accelerated the acceptance of the fact that many, many jobs can be done just as effectively from home, or at least part-time from home. So I think you're in luck. And I think that if you are looking for a job right now and you get it, it will by necessity be remote. And then when they ever bring you back, if you can just show them, I can do my job remotely. Do I really have to come in? A lot of companies will be thrilled because they get to, the real estate of an office is one of the largest operating expenses of any company. And they will be so happy to not have to pay that at all or to pay for less. If more people want to work at home or people want to only come in 2 days a week and they could sort of rotate and have smaller office space. So I think that you're in luck for remote in any area. And again, how does this help them if you work remotely? All you have to do is find a job that you can do, that you want to do, and explain why working remotely is good for them, not good for you. We know why it's good for you. They don't care, as I said, right? Why is it good for them?
Okay. Okay, I know you broached the subject about additional services and fees. I think someone was asking about that. Oh, there's one more, and I don't know if you addressed this or not, so forgive me if you did, but I'll just quickly read it. My young adult daughter is.
No, you did that one.
Oh, you did? Oh, I did? Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's pretty much it. There is one more on medical leave as education paraprofessional because of COVID-19. I'm a person in a too high risk.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if that was a question or a statement. And I'm trying to find.
Oh, it's me. Hi.
Hi, Marianne. Tell me.
Yes, I think it was when introduce yourself
Oh,
came up. So I just threw that in the chat when you also, I
okay.
think you were wondering if anybody was here, but I guess now that I have the floor, so to speak.
Go for it.
No, I am whatever. I'm 62 and a half.
Me too.
Oh, yay. Good age, right?
Yes.
And
1958.
yeah, 1958 babies. Yay. And I've done it all. I said I've been a Peace Corps volunteer out of college, which I got a sociology degree, an anthropology degree. So I was thrilled to be able to live in Kenya for 2.5 years and travel to Egypt and all these places. Came back to the Bronx and ended up needing to get a job, and I turned out to have a lot of very good natural tech skills, so I was able to be a computer programmer. And like yourself, Ben, I stayed home for about a little bit more than 10 years, but volunteered with Girl Scouts at Catholic Church, a zillion things. And then I used that, as you said. So I was nodding throughout your lecture. Then I ended up becoming a dance teacher, actually, which was my first love. I taught dance while my kids were in grade school. And then when my kids got to high school, people were chatting who were special ed. When I went back to school night, actually, I was chatting with the special ed supervisor, and she was hearing about all my Girl Scout and religious education and Peace Corps and whatnot, background dance. And she says, you would be perfect with our special ed kids to be a paraprofessional. And just like you said, it was like, whoa.
So that's a perfect example of everything I've been saying this whole time.
Yes.
All of those things, it's not like you went to Harvard. It's not like you have degrees. You have life experiences that use your energizing strengths that you are good at naturally, that somebody else, you talked to somebody, they knew of an opportunity, they put it to you, and there you are. And that's perfect example of how this works. And sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it.
Well, that's it. Now the problem is that I am still a couple of years away from Medicare, so I need health insurance.
Yeah.
I could, if I was 65, I'll be honest, I'd be putting in my, retirement, but I'm not there. So I'm petrified to a point. I'm on medical leave now, but eventually it's going to run out. So, I have to jump back, even though I'll have a vaccine by then.
So why can't you jump back to what you were doing? If you
I'm just worried about the COVID exposure still. I have I'm high risk for several, genetic, predispositions, and I, was considered high risk by my doctors, and they advised that I thank God, in the school system.
Yeah,
I
I'm
built
not,
up.
so the Board of Ed,
Yeah,
it's like
whatever.
those governmental, and I'm gonna just interrupt you because I do have
Yeah,
a friend
no,
who's
go ahead.
exactly in the same position as you. She's a
Yeah.
physical therapist, so you have to sort of be there. In special ed, I understand that, you know, you
Right.
sort of have to be there. So,
Right.
yeah, there are other ways through the Board of Ed that you can get more disability if you feel that you're a higher risk. I don't know what they are. You need to talk to a lawyer and to the union, but there are ways to do that. But you can also just sort of pivot and try to get a job in a private school, which they have more money, they have more space, and so maybe the COVID
Exposure,
exposure is
literally.
way less, and they have, you know, more comprehensive ways of being able to test and to keep people 6 feet apart and stuff like that, especially if you live in
Right.
the Bronx, like try Riverdale.
No, well
Field.
no, actually post Peace Corps, I moved down to New Jersey, so I'm
Oh, okay. I
essentially,
don't know the private schools, but try some private schools, and
yeah,
especially the
yeah,
special private schools.
yeah.
There are private schools for disabled. Mhm.
Because I truly loved it. For a month and a half, I was remote, and that
Mhm.
was the thing. Then when they went in person, I had to, go
Yeah,
on
yeah, but I
medically,
think you should
and I'm
explore
so
whatever you.
good.
Okay, I think you
Yeah,
should
no,
explore your rights as a union teacher. So I don't know what they are, but I know you do have more than just what you're getting because of COVID. So check that out
okay,
first.
that's it. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm open for continuing similar or using. I've been working with kids who are low vision, low hearing, so I am excellent with all the special
Yeah,
ed
and
world.
there's a million places that have that, you know,
No,
that deal with.
that's what I thought, like working with Google or something like
Mhm.
that, to say that I could be definitely a remote support person
Right.
and stay safe, working
Yep.
from home,
Yep.
So anyway, I saw this and I figured, this talk was exactly
Yep.
what I needed. So
But I think
thank
you're
you.
jumping the gun. I think you can stay a lot closer to what you've been doing if that's your only hesitation is the COVID exposure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, next question. What are the thoughts of transitioning from being in sales and have had HR experience? I attended Brookdale, received my HR completion certification, studying for my PHR certification. How do you think it's best on how to present yourself in transitioning?
Okay, you're going to have to tell me who is that? That's Maritza. Are you
Maritza.
here? Yeah,
Yes.
just tell me what's an APHR certification? Is that an advanced
So,
HR?
yes, it's for professional human resources certification. So, and it's associate, I should say, professional.
So what are you transitioning? It sounds like you just want a promotion.
Well, no, actually, I have been in
Okay.
transition, and due to COVID, it's been difficult finding a job. And so I decided I was working with workforce development, and they helped me to get back into school, just because I felt like my passion was to leave sales and go back into human resources, which I've done before.
Oh, I see.
So,
So you're transitioning from sales to human resources.
right, back
Oh,
into
okay.
human resources. But I was doing sales for several years
Mhm.
recently prior to getting
Okay,
let go from my company.
So how
So
do you
that's
think? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just saying, it's very, I don't know how I guess how I would say, like, how would I guess put a resume together? I don't know if this is the right question I'm asking.
Okay, so first of all, again, resume, not the best way to get a job, but if you wanted to have
Right.
a resume or just talk about it. So it's all the same thing. How are you,
Uh-huh.
how do you articulate what it is you're doing, whether in writing on a resume or talking to people? So tell me, what skills do you think you use in sales that you would use in HR?
Communication,
Yeah,
being
big time.
yeah.
What are you selling in sales? You're selling a customer to want what you have. What are you selling in
Yes,
HR? You're selling the employees to like and stay where they are.
exactly. I used to do employee benefits. I used to do payroll way back when.
Okay.
I actually also did and employee relations.
Okay, these are all the same. So those skills and sales are so similar. You just have to think of a way when you're sort of, one of the other things that we do, one of the other little hacks is that you are way more sort of believed. You have to have little stories, but if you have sort of metrics, like if you say, oh, I sold 10% above my target, that shows that I really am perceptive about what the customer wants, and I'm able to communicate what I'm offering so that they want it. HR is the same thing. I'm very effective at communicating to people why the benefits they have, or this company is a place that they should want to work, and they should want to be professionally developed here and go for this promotion or that promotion, or be happy with this benefit or that benefit. Same thing. I know how to engage the end user to want what I have, no matter what it is. And it could be HR benefits, and it could be, and not only that, but in sales, it's also very sort of this math behind it. And in HR, there's math behind it. And you know both that part, you have both sides of the skill of those skills, the math back end part and the front end customer relation part, in both of those areas. And they're really the same.
Okay.
So it makes sense. Now you just decided a different audience. Those are your skills, your energizing skills, like I was saying. And now you just decided, instead of your audience being the sales people to whom you sold in sales, it's the people who work in a specific company.
Okay.
I,
Thank you so
I
much.
think it's also called transferable soft skills.
Exactly. Exactly.
I
And
do-
sometimes these are not soft skills. Some of these are hard skills, right? It's not just communication. It's, you know, the math part is like hard skills.
I do see Joanne Jack has her hand raised.
Yes,
Hi,
hi.
Joanne. Hi.
And first of all, I want to thank you. This was very informative, Betsy. But
Oh,
I just
God.
have a question. You know, I've already done some of those strength tests. I know I'm a motivator. I know that I'm a people person. And I'm just trying to think, like, I've been in sales for technology sales for over 20 years.
Mhm.
And, you know, it was a great run, but I got laid off due to COVID. It was a startup company. And now I'm looking to see what interests me. And I feel like I'm all over the map. I want to do something that's going to be purposeful, that I enjoy. And I want to get up in the morning and really feel like this is what I want to do. And I haven't yet figured it out. Like, I love health, wellness, fitness, but I'm older, I'm 59. So it's been challenging getting in that arena. So I don't know how to go about to say, okay, I'm a people person. I love being with people. I love helping. I love motivating. What do I determine what that career path looks like now? How do I
Okay.
determine that?
So first of all, just know there is no one career path that's going to be great. There's probably a whole bunch of them, right? So you don't have to like spin around. This is the mind drama. Like, what is the one thing that I want to do? You told me I'm interested in health and wellness. You just named a couple of things. Just go talk to a couple people who do that. See what they do and see if it appeals to you. You know what your strengths are. Can I use my strengths? That would make me feel good. That's going to make you feel good. Living into your purpose, using your energizing strengths in some arena that means something to you. And there's not going to be just one. There's going to be a bunch. And you already have a really good idea of what they are. So the next thing is just to take some of the steps that we talked about. Just start talking to people who are in each of those things, in jobs that you would like to have, in companies that maybe you identify that you would like, and just talk to them. And as soon as one seems like, oh, this sounds interesting, keep going deeper into that industry and that type of company. Because the whole point of the sort of order of this process is that once you realize that if you can use your energizing strengths, then you will enjoy what you're doing and feel good about what you're doing regardless, within reasonable range. So your reasonable range is health and wellness, people person, obviously not tech sales anymore, right? Just talk to people and you will figure it out. And don't wait for that one, you know, rainbows and daisies and music and angels to appear. That's not going to happen. You know, it's going to be something that just sounds, yeah, I think I can do that. And you just keep going until you either find out that's not what I like, then you just go on to something else. That's what I'm talking also about, failing forward. Just pick something, make a decision, make that decision right. You can't make the right decision. You can only make a decision and then make that decision right by just going forward until you have more data. When you have more data, you redecide, right? Is that something I still want to do? What you're trying to do is put together a puzzle, but you don't have any of the pieces of the puzzle yet. You can only put together a puzzle with the pieces in front of you. Right now, you know a couple things. Those are your pieces. Move forward. In a month or 2 months or whenever you talk to people, you'll have some more pieces, some more data, a new puzzle. You look at that puzzle. Do I like it? Or do I want to go buy a different puzzle and move on to something else?
Right.
So you're just spinning in indecision. And that's exactly the mind drama I was talking about. That's where, like, for me, the minute I started allowing myself to say, I don't know what I want to do. What about this? What about that? What about the other thing?
That's how I feel.
Yeah, I just didn't do it. I just didn't do anything.
Yeah,
So
I
you just
feel
have
like
to
I'm
pick.
all over the map.
Right. So the way I picked is I was complaining to my friends at coffee and they said, hey, I donate to this foster residence that's 10 blocks away from you. Why don't you try that? I said, okay. I had no idea what it was. I didn't really, I knew I liked to help underserved communities. That's all I knew. That was one, went to see. That's what happened. If I didn't like it, I would have moved on to something else. But if I stayed home to wait until I had the right idea, I would have never left my house. I'd still be there. Ironically, I am still here, but in a different role. I'm in my daughter's purple room. It's the only room that faces the back, so it's not noisy.
Okay, I think unless anyone else has any other questions or statements, I think that concludes our career development workshop. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. Again, I will be happy to share this recording with those who signed up. So I'll be sending that out by the end of this week, I believe. And I personally want to thank Betsy. Betsy Kent,
Pleasure.
yes, for such an informative and especially your valuable advice. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful workshop, and thank you for making this workshop so rewarding, Betsy. So thanks
My
again.
pleasure, everybody. I wish everybody good luck, and trust me, you can do it. It's just a bunch of actions. Don't be in your own way. That's the only thing
Thank
that
you,
will stop
Betsy.
you.
Thank you very much.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you very much, Betsy.
My pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, Marielle, I'm going to just stay on so we could just
Yes.
figure out logistics when everybody else is off.